So I just spent $85 on gas. Hello and welcome to Sweet Home, California. My name is Jennifer, but I am not going to talk about gas on my ride home here. No, I'm going to talk about the LA County Board of Supervisors meeting that they held today, starting at 9:30. It was about the worst 5-6 hours I can remember spending in a very long time. I was made aware of this meeting by Sheriff Villanueva, who is the sheriff of LA County, and he posted last night, I didn't see it till this morning, that this meeting was going to happen, and on the agenda was a proposal to take out of the hands of the sheriff enforcement of the county's vaccine mandate. So way back 6 months ago, the LA County Board of Supervisors had mandated that all county employees are required to take the vaccination. But Sheriff Villanueva basically said he wasn't going to enforce that. He didn't have the personnel as it was. He's already about 10% below what the ideal staffing is. I believe the article I read said it should be somewhere around 10,700, but he only has currently somewhere around 9,500. And he says that with this mandate, if he's forced to let go of all the officers that are refusing to be vaccinated, that would reduce his police force by 3,000, and then an additional 1,000 support personnel and administrative staff that are part of the sheriff's office would also be terminated. So in the Facebook post that he put out, he encouraged people to let the Board of Supervisors know our thoughts on it. And boy, did they. My goodness. So I jumped in on the call. It started at 9:30. And I listened to everything that they had to say about things. And they opened up with 90 minutes of discussion that the public could let their voices be heard. And they did give the sheriff the courtesy of going first. They gave him 3 minutes to discuss why he was opposed to this agenda item, which was agenda item 18. I will put a link down in the description that will give you all the information of exactly what this agenda item entails, the details of it, as well as the number of people who had even before today, because this was all in an addendum. They had 296, somewhere around there. It was a lot. It was well over 250 pages of public comment, in addition to people who called in, like the sheriff called in and his comments. So anyhow, what the sheriff had to say was, in addition to the fact that this would reduce his police force by an additional 30%. So then, instead of only being 10% short on the ideal staffing, he would be 40% short if these officers decided not to get the vaccine. 40% short. He commented that they were already had increased the amount of overtime that's allowed. I guess it's a union thing where they're not supposed to be able to do more than 90 hours per month of overtime. And because they were so short-staffed, they were able to get the union to approve going up to 120 hours of overtime per month. For a standard 40-hour work week, if you're doing 120 hours of overtime, that's an additional 30-some-odd hours a week. That's a 70-hour work week. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's unsustainable. I just don't see how you're going to keep your best and brightest police officers if you are working them that much. Now, I don't know how much of that overtime is mandatory, but I know that in LA County, crime is horrible, and people are upset. It really is ridiculous. So anyhow, he pointed that out, that they don't have the manpower to be able to sustain any more losses. Plus, there's currently a hiring freeze. So you have these people quit or through attrition, retirements, or whatever. And that was something else he pointed out, that they already had a good number of people that were planning on retiring within the coming few months to a year. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame was, but it was a good number. I want to say somewhere between 500 and 900. I don't have it right in front of me. That he was already going to be losing, in addition to these folks. And then he pointed out also that because, the vaccine is supposed to help ensure that if someone gets the illness, that at least it will be a milder illness. Also, it's supposed to help reduce the chances that you will even come down with the disease to begin with. And according to the sheriff, he said that in the last year, I'm not sure exactly on the time frame, but in the last certain amount of time, 3.46% of the vaccinated officers on the police force tested positive for COVID. 3.46. In the same time frame, those that were unvaccinated had a positivity rate of 3.86. So the sheriff pointed out that we are going to mandate this for people, go against, some of these folks are doing it because of religious objections. Some may be doing it because they may have a concern about medical effects that they may have. Perhaps they've had a poor reaction in the past. And some of them may just be because it's on principle, that they don't want to do it because, just for the very cause that they are being forced to. But we're going to jeopardize the livelihood of some 3,000 to 4,000 people out of just the sheriff's office. This isn't counting the additional 14,000 throughout the rest of the county that are county employees, that include firefighters, other first responders, teachers perhaps. I'm not sure exactly who all, what the breakdown is by department. But he said, we're going to do this for a difference in positivity of 0.4%. And then it's 3 minutes we're up. So then, the public spoke on it, and there were a number of agenda items. There were probably some 60 different agenda items, which is why this meeting was so horribly long. But I can tell you that the vast majority of the people who spoke on an agenda item spoke on this agenda item. The vast majority of those that spoke on this agenda item about the mandates were opposition to it. So they were saying, we need to keep our police force there. If they have a crime they need to report, they just want someone to respond. Whether or not that person is vaccinated is the least of their worries. There were a couple people, though, who did voice their favor in support of the mandate. But then at the same time, there is another agenda item that wanted to put on wanted to make it possible for the Board of Supervisors to recall the sheriff. Currently, the process, I suppose, is that you have to, just like we did with Governor Newsom at the state level, and what they're currently trying to do with the DA at the county level, DA Gascon, is that you have to do this whole big thing with signatures in order to spur a re-election, to recall an elected official. Well, the sheriff of the county is an elected official, but because some people are concerned that the sheriff isn't doing a good job, they don't think they can recall him, so they want to give the Board of Supervisors that power to recall the sheriff, an elected official, which several people voiced opposition to it, saying that this was totally against the county's charter and shouldn't be allowed. Well, in any case, the only 2 or 3 people that I heard that spoke in favor of the mandate and these police officers and their other county employees losing their job also voiced their support of the Board of Supervisors being able to unilaterally recall the sheriff. So you kind of know what side of the fence they're sitting on. While I was waiting for more discussion on for the board itself to talk about Agenda 18 and this mandate on the sheriff's employees. I read some of the additional things that they had online. They had a document that was 296 pages long that had people for and against this one agenda item. 296 pages. Now, the first 12 pages claimed that all those people on the first 12 pages were for the mandate. And now here's something interesting. Michael Moore was on there. I suppose he's a resident of LA County. You know, that would all be Hollywood and everything. But I saw somebody named Michael Moore, so I don't know if it's the Michael Moore. But of course, he was in favor of it. And so they would have the person's name, and they would also have any comments that they added. A number of people didn't have any comments. But then most people did have some comment or other. So on those 12 pages where it claimed that they were for the mandate, that means they were for the county being able to go ahead and fire those employees. Most of them, when you read the comment, it was very obvious that they were against it. So that was interesting. But then still, that was only 12 pages. So even if all 12 were really against it, or really in favor of letting go all these employees, the vast majority, the remaining 296 some odd pages, were definitely strongly opposed to this measure. And what this measure is basically that if the sheriff or any department head, because it didn't single out the sheriff, but they did specify that the sheriff has over 60% of those who are not in compliance with the mandate. So, but anyhow, what the Board of Supervisors wants to be able to do is that instead of the head of that particular department being in charge of their own personnel and deciding how to enforce and how to terminate, they want to have this measure where if the sheriff or any department head isn't going to enforce it, then the director of personnel, the HR person, the top HR person in the county, will then be able to enforce it. So anyhow, despite all the people who called in, despite some 270 some odd pages out of 296 that were strongly voicing opposition to this item, the Board of Supervisors voted 4-0 in favor of it. The one nominally conservative Board of Supervisor member is Supervisor Burgess, I believe is how you pronounce the name. And that person abstained, decided not to record their vote for or against it. So very disappointing. Not surprising, because Democrats mostly are in favor of these mandates. And in LA, it's run by Democrats. I saw a blog post today that said 72% of Democrats are in favor of the mandates. And even though the Supreme Court has ruled them unconstitutional, these Democrat areas are still holding those views. So 72 some odd percent of Democrats are in favor of it. 59% are in favor of basically keeping the unvaccinated locked in their homes, and that they can only go out for emergencies, and that's it. There's 49%, so almost half still, are even in favor of imprisonment and fines for people who refuse to have the vaccine. So I believe that it should be a person's informed choice. And if you're not allowing informed choice, then we really don't live in a free society. This is something that needs to be decided between the individual and their doctor and their conscience. And, all the information involved. So anyhow, I will include links down below. Thank you for listening. I am home. And so now I'm going to go have dinner. So anyhow, keep praying. The next step, though, is the board is going to have the director of personnel write up whatever this new policy is going to be. So today the agenda item was just to have them present that policy, or to approve them to ask for that policy, and then that policy will be presented in March. So everyone who is still who has not complied has at least a month before the next step is going to drop. So anyhow, God bless, and talk to you later. Bye.